Today, I'm showing you how to connect every piece of gear in your home studio, from audio interface, computer, vocal chain, multiple studio monitors, analog hardware, MIDI keyboards, analog synths, master chain, analyzers, and more. Yeah, when I say everything, I literally mean everything. I'm also breaking down the signal flow and software settings to complete your hybrid home studio setup for production, mixing, and mastering. When you have lots of audio gear like me, then you need an interface with lots of inputs and outputs. So I'm using this Focusrite Scarlett 18i20 4th generation. This big red beast packs insanely good sound quality and connectivity for a very affordable price, available at guitarcenter.com. This is easily one of the best budget interfaces that you can rack mount in your desk. But you can follow these steps with any audio interface that proportionately matches the amount of gear in your home studio. However, Focusrite Scarlett does have one really special feature that makes your vocals sound insanely good, but we'll get back to that later. So let's jump into the desk and connect everything in this home studio. The first thing I did was attach the rack mount ears so it can securely sit in my Argosy Halo desk. I like to keep my audio interface on the left side of my desk because my right hand is usually preoccupied with the computer mouse. Generally, the stuff I use during production and recording sits on the left side, and the gear that I focus on during post-production, mixing, and mastering goes towards the right. As for monitors, I keep my larger primary speakers on stands, and my smaller secondary speakers sit perfectly on my desk below my computer screen. These are the Atom D3V studio monitors, which are easily the best sounding small speakers I've ever heard. Plus, they only cost $349 at Guitar Center, which is an insanely good price for the quality. I do the majority of my work on my larger monitors, but I consistently check every project through my D3Vs to ensure everything translates the way I like. You seriously can't go wrong with these. So all my gear is laid out in the exact spot that I like, and I already went ahead and did my first round of cables, which is power. To power everything, I use these Furman M8X2 power conditioners that cost $84.99 at Guitar Center. All my audio, computer, and lighting equipment together requires 3 Furmans to plug everything in. So I'm going to run all my power cables loosely, but still keep them organized with Velcro straps as we go. Plus, I love how this Argosy Halo desk has one of those cable management trays along the back underside of the desk to keep things from dangling. You can easily add one of these to any desk by searching for cable management shelf or tray on Amazon. Let's go ahead and connect our computer and accessories. I like to start with my audio interface, which I connect to my hub with a USB-C cable. The other things I connect to my hub include a MIDI controller, hard drives, mouse, analog gear, or any other accessories I have. My favorite Thunderbolt hub is this CalDigit Elements hub that you can find on Amazon for about $179. The last thing I connect to my computer is an HDMI cable so I can see my Mac on this big 48-inch LG OLED TV. Next, download and install the Focusrite Control 2 app so we can lock in all of our settings and workflow piece by piece as we connect our gear. The app that comes with your audio interface is extremely important. It's the central hub of everything in your home studio, so make sure you choose an audio interface with some well-made software because you're going to be using it a lot. And it can already see that our Scarlett 18i20 is connected and we're ready to go. So let's begin connecting our studio gear using the inputs on the Focusrite from left to right, which means first, we're going to set up our primary vocal mic. So for this first vocal chain, we're sending our mic through a proper external analog preamp and compressor. This is how you record with analog gear and completely bypass the internal analog preamps in your Focusrite. But let's begin with our analog vocal chain and connect our Neumann TLM49 condenser mic into the microphone input of our Vintech X73 preamp. This is an excellent sounding Neve 1073 inspired preamp and EQ that you can find used for under $1,200 at Guitar Center. Simply switch on 48 volts phantom power, EQ, and click up your gain. And now your mic is being amplified by the preamp. Let's send our signal to the compressor. All we need for that is a short, simple XLR cable that sends our line level audio from the output of the preamp up to the input of the compressor. The compressor in my setup is the Universal Audio 1176, which is a legendary compressor that you can find for about $3,000 on Guitar Center. A compressor like this is pretty easy to emulate with a plugin, but for me, using analog gear is all about having those major audio enhancements before your converters instead of after. To me, that makes a big difference. For my compression settings, I try to tap the attenuation as lightly as possible while I'm recording, and my ratio button always stays at the lowest option, which is 4:1. Last, we need to connect the output of our compressor to input 1 of our Focusrite Scarlett. Instead of using another XLR cable, I'm going to use a cable with 1/4-inch TRS on one side and XLR female on the other. This is important because if you just use regular XLR, many interfaces won't bypass their built-in preamps. But if you use 1/4-inch, they will. And Focusrite has automatically detected that line level signal is coming in, and now your Focusrite is bypassing the internal preamps, but you can still make level adjustments with this gain knob here in the app. When I'm recording through Analog Gear, I look for levels that peak just below the yellow part of the meter. And these settings on your Analog Gear are a great starting point for your first vocal recordings through any analog vocal chain. Next, let's try connecting a mic to our Focusrite the easy way. I'm going to run a long XLR cable directly from the mic to input 2, and then open the Focusrite Control 2 app and click 48 volts phantom power for channel 2. Then increase the gain to about 50%, which is a safe starting point for any vocal. And just like on channel 1, I'm looking for levels that peak just below the yellow part of the audio meter. In my opinion, the best part about using Scarlett to record vocals is the air button. This sauces your signal up with harmonically pleasing drive and EQ for brightness that brings any microphone to life. My favorite settings is this yellow preset, Air plus Drive. And when I'm recording any mic directly into a Focusrite Scarlett, I'm using the air button with this setting 100% of the time. This truly is what I call the Scarlett secret sauce, and they've got it sounding better than ever with this new 4th gen audio interface. So that's how you set up an advanced analog vocal chain and a traditional direct mic setup. Next, let's talk about connecting keyboards. I have 2 Roland keyboards that I like to connect 2 different ways. The first one is a Juno 106, which connects with a traditional pair of 1/4-inch TRS cables. I'm going to run the left channel to input 3 and the right channel to input 4. Then click Linking here in the Focusrite Control 2 app to join inputs 3 and 4 as a stereo pair. This way you have one level knob to control both your left and right ears together. Focusrite takes your connectivity to the next level with MIDI inputs and outputs. For example, we can connect this Juno to trigger chords using MIDI in Ableton while I jam out on the knobs and controls as my MIDI keyboard is getting recorded. This lets you do stuff that ordinarily would have took 4 arms. Now, the second keyboard I'm connecting is about 25 years newer, which means it offers some digital connectivity options. I find this simpler because it only uses 1 cable, plus you're avoiding 2 stages of conversion by connecting digitally. You're skipping the converters in the keyboard, and you're skipping the converters in the Focusrite. I'm using this digital RCA cable that sends SPDIF from the Roland Phantom to the audio interface. The digital input will appear here in your Focusrite Control 2 app, so you can balance the level for your headphone mix. And boom, you've got keyboards connected analog and digitally at the same time. So we've got 2 mics, 2 keyboards, but we still don't hear any sound. So let's connect 2 pairs of speakers. The first pair I'm connecting are my larger main monitors, the ATC SCM45s. They use XLR inputs and the Focusrite has 1/4-inch outputs. So I'm going to be using XLR male to 1/4-inch cables to connect my left and right main monitors to their corresponding first and second outputs. My secondary monitors are these Atom D3Vs, which connect to your Focusrite using 1/4-inch to 1/4-inch cables. These speakers also have their own built-in audio interface which connects with USB-C, but today we're connecting them to our interface for easier speaker switching. So plug in your secondary monitors to the outputs labeled Alt, which is 3 and 4. 3 is your left speaker and 4 is your right. Definitely make sure you don't get it crisscrossed. Now we choose Scarlett in our max audio settings and open up the Focusrite Control 2 app to set up our speaker switching controls. Simply go to Mixer, click this pencil icon next to Routed to, and make sure both main outputs and alt outputs are selected. Here in the app sidebar, you'll see these buttons called Alt and Main, and these are your monitor switching buttons. Or to make it even easier, the Alt button on the front of your interface is there as a monitor switching shortcut. Now that's convenient, and I use that all the time. So let's continue down our outputs and connect some audio analyzers. These connect the same way speakers do, but instead of making sound, they display information. First, I have the Duro 40As, and these are kind of old school analyzers that's not really manufactured anymore, but I love the way it looks and displays loudness, dynamic range, and crest factor. I'm going to connect them to outputs 5 and 6 of my Focusrite using XLR male to 1/4-inch TRS cables. Each side gets its own cable, and by default, your audio interface is not going to be mirroring your signal to outputs 5, 6. So let's open up the Focusrite Control 2 app and send our signal to our analyzer. I want it to work so that whatever I'm listening out of my computer, from a DAW, internet browser, Finder, emails, I want it all to appear on my analyzer. So first, I'm going to click Routing, Edit, and check outputs 5 and 6, then set your source to mix A. Then do the same below in your Alt so your analyzers continue to work when you're listening to your secondary speakers. And we've already got signal on our first audio analyzer. Now the second analyzer I use to show LUFS, EQ, and stereo width. It's a whole different set of data. This thing is called Clarity M Stereo by TC Electronics, and my favorite way to connect it is using optical SPDIF. You can get an optical cable like this at Guitar Center to connect between SPDIF optical output 2 on your Focusrite and the optical audio input on your Clarity M Stereo. Then click the ... menu, Preferences, and scroll down to select Optical SPDIF. Then go to your mixer, choose the pencil icon, and route your mixer output to SPDIF 1-2. Now you've got a constant stream of audio data for everything you hear coming out of your computer going to your analyzer. And I like this setup way better than plugins because plugins only show you data from sound coming out of your DAW, and I want to see all my apps. Speaking of levels, the next thing I'm going to connect is a mastering EQ. This is a great way to add color to a track that was produced entirely in the box. I'm going to be using the Better Maker Stereo Passive EQ, which you can find pre-owned at Guitar Center for about $1,500. To connect this, I'm going to run output 7/8 to the inputs of my EQ, then run the outputs of my EQ to inputs 7/8 on my Focusrite. Now you have a simple signal path to send audio out and back into your interface when you're mastering. Another type of analog gear you might want to use when you're mixing stems is a compressor. Not every vocal was recorded through a nice vocal chain like this. Sometimes you have to send it through a compressor in post. And this Universal Audio LA2A is one of my favorite plugins and actual pieces of hardware for adding light, subtle glue to a vocal. So here's how you hook it up. I use a 1/4 inch to XLR cable to send signal from output 9 of the Focusrite to the input of the compressor. Then the output of the compressor goes back to input 5 of the Focusrite. And now you have a perfect mono line level signal loop so you can send any stem in your DAW through your compressor. The final piece of gear that I need to connect is kind of unique. This is the McDSP analog processing box. It's analog hardware that gets controlled by plugins, and it doesn't connect to your interface in a traditional way. It connects to your computer with a Thunderbolt cable, and it connects to your interface with a word clock cable. That helps these two digital devices perfectly synchronize when you're mixing with McDSP APB plugins that give you analog goodness with the convenience of automation on screen. I have a whole video about it, which I'll link in the description below. But hooking it up to your Focusrite is as simple as connecting the word clock input of the APB to the word clock output of the Focusrite. And boom, you've got a perfectly synced up hybrid mixing and mastering workflow. And last but not least, we got to plug in a guitar. And for that, I would probably use one of the ports on the front. But keep in mind, if you use 1 or 2 on the front, it overrides 1 or 2 on the back. So if I was connecting a guitar, I'd probably override microphone 2. So let's go ahead and connect this to the front on input 2. Click the instrument button and set your gain, and you're jamming with latency-free guitar that you can direct monitor in your headphones. The other 2 outputs on the front of your Focusrite are for headphones. And I love when interfaces have 2 headphone outputs because I'm always working with a singer and we like to have our own independent volume controls. So now the final thing that I want to set up is sort of an invisible piece of gear, but it's extremely critical to people who make content or record their screen or make tutorials. The most important feature an audio interface can have for someone like me is Loopback. This is how you record yourself while you're recording yourself. You want your audience to hear you every step of the way when you're making a tutorial, and Loopback is how you do that. So to create an invisible loopback channel for you to record in your ScreenFlow or OBS software, you simply go to the mix page, click the pencil, and add loopback here to the destinations for mix A. And now everything that you hear in your headphone mix is getting sent to loopback. So when you open an app like ScreenFlow, you can connect to your Focusrite Scarlett 18i20, select your loopback channel, your microphone for your voiceover, and record a tutorial. But that's just a little bonus trick that I use every single day. So we've used pretty much every single port on this Focusrite Scarlett 18i20, and our studio desk is fully connected. But even with everything we have here, this interface still leaves us with some room to grow and connect even more stuff. But for the majority of artists, producers, content creators, or bands, this is more than enough inputs and outputs to hold down even the most advanced music project studios or professional needs. So if you want to learn more about the Focusrite Scarlett 18i20 or any of the other gear that I used in my studio setup, I'll include Guitar Center links in the description below and catch you guys next time in another video.